Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Lorna Shore, Pain Remains, out October 14th on Century Media Records. The album has 10 tracks, 61 minutes in length, and this is the band's 4 full-length studio album. They are an American deathcore band. From a design perspective, this album is incredibly fluid, dynamic, engaging, and it never stops, it never breaks. They created key points at the end of each song and the beginning of the next in order for the album to allow you to seamlessly move from one track, from one experience into the next, not taking anything away from the individuality of the songs, allowing their own nature, their own fingerprint to come across, to have an impact on how you perceive the album, but working really well with one another in order for every single track to add something to the overall big picture. This record is nothing more than 10 songs, 10 steps that you're taking on this journey, that you're taking on this path. Every step is different. Every step takes you closer to where that final destination is going to be all about. Having an album designed in this way makes the overall experience feel a lot shorter. The record doesn't feel like it's 61 minutes in length. It feels like it's perhaps half of that. So this speaks volumes in terms of the playability and how easy to digest this album is, which is exactly the experience you want to give when you create this seamless flow across each and every single song. You want the album to be digested as a whole, not necessarily just by taking individual songs out of the context. It still works that way. Obviously, the singles prove that case in point, but this album is really designed as an overall record of 10 tracks, 10 chapters, 10 steps that you really have to take in order to get what the full essence of the album is all about. As far as sound, this record is very layered, is very textured. It's a massive sounding album. It sounds epic, it sounds cinematic, but it still feels dirty and grimy. It keeps two aspects of the genre alive and well. It connects the past, that grimy sound, that grimy experience, with a more modern approach that allows you to feel the orchestrations having a much bigger impact on the essence, on the atmosphere, and how you drive these songs forward. Now, the orchestrations are one of 4 pillars of what the sound of this album is all about. The other 3 are drums, guitars, and obviously vocals. Now, as far as the orchestrations are concerned, I love the impact that they have on the record. They don't necessarily drive the experience of every single song, but they make the experience feel a lot bigger, having more volume, more texture, more nuances to them, creating much clearer atmospheres in terms of what these tracks are all about. It's easier to understand the lyrics, it's easier to connect with the lyrics because of the orchestrational impact and how it makes you feel towards the song. Now, as far as the drums are concerned, a lot of the power, aggression, and relentless nature of this album comes from the drum sound. A drum sound that grounds the record, that grounds the tracks, but doesn't slow them down. If anything, it propels them forward. It allows the guitars to be a little bit more dynamic, to be a little bit more diverse, because as far as aggression and heaviness, the drums are taking the full brunt of that force, and they're taking that task on its shoulders. So this creates an album that has that thickness to it, that has that big volume, that big presence. And when you have drums that sound like that, matching in with those orchestrations, you have that cinematic, epic feel coming across almost on every single song. Now, the guitars, like I mentioned, they're a little bit more diverse, very different from what the drums are offering. The guitars on this album have the ability to go from the heavier side of the band into the more melodic, even melancholic side of the band. And that's where the ebbs and flows start to appear. This is where you see these tracks and overall album expanding and contracting all the time. This creates dynamic movement. There's a lot of dynamic movement vocally, obviously, but sound-wise, the guitars are one of the main key factors on allowing these songs to have some sort of a heartbeat. When you add incredible guitar solos to it, you're just expanding the footprint of the work that the guitars are putting forward. Now, what I mean by incredible solos on this album, I'm not talking about, Halloween style solos or Iron Maiden style solos. That's not what you're going to get on this record. But you're going to have solos that have an impact. They may not be over the top, but they add value to the song constructions, they add value to the soundscape, they add value to the songs themselves. And this is an important element that we don't always see within this genre. I honestly felt like every solo on this record had an impact, had a drive, it had a purpose, either expanding the experience that you were getting out of the chorus, either expanding on the experience that you were getting out of the verses, or expanding on the experience that you were feeling from the organic elements that the track had within itself. So the solos on this album work really well, not because of the length, not necessarily because of the execution, but rather by what they add to the overall experience of the songs, and then obviously of the record. Last but not least comes the vocals. Will Ramos is a defining singer when it comes to the impact that he can have on any band. In this case, we're talking about Lorna Shore. This album really defines what he can do vocally, and not just what he can do in terms of his tone, of his delivery, of his range, but the emotions that he brings with his voice, the emotions that he brings within his range, in order to paint a very vivid picture with a brush that has different sides depending on what you're trying to do and what the band is trying to create with each and every single track and within the tracks themselves, because it's not like the tracks have a linear path to them. These tracks are very volatile. There's controlled chaos throughout this entire record. Some of that chaos obviously comes from his delivery, but his delivery always seems to be on point. Exactly what you needed from the song vocally, the emotion that you needed, the style of brush that you needed, he's bringing it to the forefront and he's giving it. He has this ability to really transform songs into something that's a lot more palpable, that's a lot more visible. Even though his range at times really pushes the boundaries, really makes you somewhat feel uncomfortable, you find some comfort in that discomfort. He has a great delivery, he has great tonality, he has great way of enunciating the words, using the lyrical content to his advantage, including that lyrical content in a way that his range can really deliver, can really expand, can really grow, feel like it's alive. It's another instrument. It's another instrument throughout the entire album, throughout the entire experience, on a record that's without a shadow of a doubt their best album to date. Perhaps the best album of 2022. There's still some records to come out, so I don't want to say that just yet, but it's going to be very hard to surpass an album like this. It's a multifaceted record. It has a lot of layers. Like I said, it has a lot of texture. It's not linear by no means. There's chaos, but there's control within that chaos, and the shapes that they create with these songs, within the songs, the messages that they put forward with the lyrical content, the emotion that comes across in the delivery and in the soundscape that they created, is single to none. Incredible album from top to bottom. As far as favorite songs are concerned, outside of the singles, I'm going to start off with Soulless Existence, a very somber, dark opening to this track. Now, I love that this somber and dark opening is there musically and vocally, but it's not just there in the beginning. It peaks its head throughout the entire existence of the song. So it has moments where it disappears or it dissipates, and then there's moments where it comes back up again into the surface. This is really important in order to keep the song connected, not giving it just one piece at the beginning and then completely forgetting about it for the rest of the song. A track that moves in a very methodic way, specifically in the verses. The orchestrations help define that methodic movement and the atmosphere of the song as well. When the track opens it up, it becomes a lot bigger, it becomes heavier, but also more melodic at the same time. And you're gonna see that in the chorus. The chorus is like you're coming out of a cocoon. If you think of this song as that cocoon, the verses are definitely the shape of the cocoon itself. The chorus is when the cocoon opens up and then that butterfly comes out. Incredible movement, but nuances that exist within it. I heard a lot of people talk about deathcore ballads. This song, from a structural point of view, from the nuances that it offers, it's perhaps the closest track on this album to that ballad. It's obviously not a ballad, but it has a lot of the same nuances that you would find on a regular metal ballad, and I like that aspect to it. Now, the mood of the entire song is represented to a T in the guitar solo. This is an important factor. This is what I was talking about earlier as far as the solos adding value to the composition of the songs. This track is a perfect example of that. Next, we have Apotheosis. The church choirs on this track are chilling. Goosebumps when you listen to that, when the song kicks in and you feel that. You feel the darkness creeping in. that grimy experience that I talked about earlier. It's present through those orchestrations, and then it migrates into the actual sound of the track itself. The atmosphere on this song from start to finish is at levels of insanity. You can feel it, you can touch it. It's not just sound, but the sound really takes you into a much darker place as far as this overall song is concerned. The aggression is relentless, sound-wise and vocally. The chorus allows melody to take a little bit control of that aggression and box it in a little bit better, but the verses are aggression on the loose. It's just really feeling like there's no boundaries, that there's no control, that there's no restraints. This allows the track to have this sense of contracting and expanding constantly. There's no real definition of where you're going with it. You just know that you're getting outside of your boundaries and then you're coming back inside of them again. There's a crazy solo on this track that, with the vocal layers on top of it, it just feels larger than life. It adds thickness to it, it adds volume to it, it adds texture to it. It works really well for a track that has the atmosphere that this track has, and that it has the heaviness and aggression that it holds. Last but not least, Wrath, a more aggressive track from start to finish, more linear, one of the most linear songs on this album. Not that it's super linear all the way throughout, there's no such thing when it comes to Lorna Shore and Pain Remains, but of all the tracks that this album offers, this is perhaps the one that has the least amount of ebbs and flows. The guitars push this track forward, the orchestrations help compact that sound and carry it forward as well. Everything has size, everything has thickness. The vocals help define a little bit of creating ebbs and flows that you don't necessarily see sound-wise. So having the different range, Will coming in and really expanding and contracting with his voice, allows the song to have mobility, allows the song to have movement without changing too much of what the bass line of this track is all about. So I like the experience, I like the contrast that it offers, I like how it stays a little bit more together musically and a little bit looser vocally. It makes the song feel different while still using a lot of the same elements that you're going to hear throughout the entire record. This is it, Lorna Shore, Pain Remains, out October 14th on Century Media Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.